Hello and welcome back. Thank you for listening to my stories, which hopefully have an education component for you as a therapist and also you as a client to understand how releasing trauma out of the body and the nervous system, the fascia, will help you to get healthier. So I'm going to talk about Advanced 2. It's not necessarily the order I took classes. So obviously, well, I took Advanced 2 after Advanced 1, but I believe between Advanced 1 and Advanced 2, I took all the other classes, or a lot of the other classes, but I'm going to talk about it later on because they're like an add-on craniosacral classes, if you want to put it this way. So Advanced 2, same. Was it the same? Different location, went to Truth or Consequences. I had been to Truth or Consequences in New Mexico before as an adjunct therapist. I'm going to talk about that in a different video. But Truth or Consequences is an interesting place. It is at the Rio, was that Negro Grande? Oh. But it has some healing waters. It has some funny motels. It's a quirky little town somewhere between Las Cruces and, is it Las Cruces? Yeah, Las Cruces and Albuquerque. So yeah, I flew into El Paso. That's where it was. I had to think for a minute. So flew into El Paso, got a rental car, drove to Truth or Consequences, stayed in a nice lodge. I had stayed in another place before. Like I said, I had been there before, but that wasn't so ideal. Anyway, so I stayed at this lodge and ready for Advanced 2. So Advanced 2 is a little bit like Advanced 1. Again, it's a group of 5 therapists, but you're not in the same group. So the instructor and the adjunct therapist, what are they called? Whatever, the one that helps the teacher, or the two, they decide for the group in the morning. So I tell you who's in one group, and then you work together and you work again, one person on the table. So you're going to be on the table once as a therapist, as a client. You're once going to be the lead therapist, and 3 times you are the adjunct therapist assistant. And each session can last, whatever. I think we were once there until like midnight again, just to finish up a session and release trauma. I mean, I had a lot of also like the physical trauma. I mean, if you just imagine my pelvis constantly being out of alignment, how much pain and trauma was just stuck in my sacral bone. I mean, there was just, I remember in Advanced 2, there was so much heat and pain coming out of that sacral bone in one of the sessions. It was crazy. But I wanted to share 2 significant things for me, and also just, well, once I share, then I will give my 50 cents. So one of the things that happened was, I can't remember what year I took that class, probably 2016. Yeah, I think so. So 10 years ago. I was still hadn't found the off button, what I call it, like the off button, to not constantly morph into everybody else's pain and structural issues, and just finding my midline and my center and being balanced. So I remember, I don't know, maybe day 2, day 3 of the class, we were going for lunch, we're walking back, and again I just like morphed into the person in front of me, and I'm like, oh my god, this just needs to stop. So in the morning in our group discussion, I had shared with the group that I would like for this constant channeling, because it is channeling. It is not the channeling where you sit there like, oh, I'm channeling like whatever, like some messages, as in like verbal, but it is a form of channeling, because if I'm constantly morphing into someone and channeling their pain, that is channeling. But I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't want to feel people's stuff. I'm like, oh my god, this just needs to stop. So I'm sharing in the group. I'm like, I really need this channeling to stop. And even though I really liked the instructor and I had taken classes with him before, I was really disappointed by what he said. And okay, I shrugged it off, but I knew I need to find something else. That's it. So, what he said, when I said I would, because again, you set an intention for your session. I'm like, I would really like for this channeling, like constantly channeling people's pain or their bodies. I wanted to stop. So he kind of like ridiculed it. He's like, oh, channeling is such a new age word. It's kind of like sitting cross-legged and you're just channeling. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I didn't say anything. I'm like thinking to myself, wow, that's not even what I'm talking about. So again, that for me was just, like I mentioned in some of the other videos, I'm like, I'm gonna finish this workshop, but I think it's time for me to move on, because obviously the instructor doesn't know how to deal with this. And since it was already advanced 2, so that's the most advanced class, and there's nobody in this institute as an instructor. I mean, I'm not saying nobody, but at this point, to support or help me with that instead of just ridiculing. I never sit crisscross legs. I don't even like that, because it throws your sacral and occiput out. And that wasn't my way of talking about channeling. My way of was like, I want to find an off button. I don't know. And I just assumed he didn't know, or whatever. Anyway, so that was kind of like, okay, that's it. That's why I never took advanced 3. I don't think they even teach it anymore. I'm like, yeah, I'm done. Because I still knew I needed support. I needed to find someone who can help me with this, which then I thought, again, the universe or God or whoever you want to call it, always, my higher self, took care of me to send me to the next person. But here's another story just from that workshop, which was pretty interesting, because truth or consequence is like has a weird frequency. And I remember something came up with mermaids in one of that session. I think I felt like a mermaid, because I felt like, oh my God, I can't feel my legs. They're always just aching, and it's just like a mermaid. And lo and behold, I was laying on a sheet. There was a sheet under the sheet I was laying on, and there were mermaids on there. And I'm like, oh, there you go again. Channeling into, just morphing into everything, like a empath on, like a nut person. No off button. And the evening, when I went, so it was the last night in Truth or Consequences, I went back to my to the lodge, and there was this lady, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm working at the front desk. And she was German. She said to me, are you German? I'm like, yeah. She's like, I'm German. I'm from whatever, like northern Germany. I'm like, oh my God, what are the chances that you meet a German in the desert somewhere in New Mexico in Truth or Consequences? And she's working at the front desk of this little lodge. So she said, I'm an artist. I make art. And she's like, why don't you come tomorrow and take a look at it? And I'm like, yeah, I have to drive to El Paso and da. And I'm like, I was just still out of it from the class and everything. But yeah. So long story short, in the morning I ran into her and I'm like, hey, I have a couple of minutes, I can go and look at your art. And because I had a big theme of like the pain in my legs, and the Little Mermaid story and how she's walking on land, that was like, oh, this pain in my legs all the time. And so she's taking me behind the front desk, and there's a studio where she has her artwork, and she's opening the door, and I'm looking at floor to ceiling paintings, but beautiful paintings with added pattern and shiny things. The entire studio was full of mermaids, and I'm like standing there, and I'm like, oh my God. Started crying, and she's like, because I had seen she had a disability to her hand or something, I can't remember, there was something with her arm, she maybe a cerebral palsy or something, but there was something disabled. And then she said to me, the mermaids, we are those who are walking the planet Earth in pain. And I'm like, oh my God. She just had me at it. I was just like out of it. I'm like, what are the chances? But this is how spirit or my higher self usually, I call it F's with me. At this point I can laugh about it, but I mean, I probably also laughed about it back then, but I also cried about it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just horrible. So I drove back to El Paso, crying the whole time in my car. I'm like, oh my God, those who are walking the planet in pain or with disability, the mermaids. I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, so that was my Advanced 2 experience. It was a motivator to find something else, or just like, which is good. It's like how my spirit just guides me. It's like, hey, the next person is waiting for you. I'm not going to talk about the next person yet because I have a lot of other cranial classes and hands-on classes to talk about until I get to that part. So thank you for listening, and a lot of exciting things to come. Thank you.